This week, Governor Tony Evers officially unveils his next two-year budget. He's already outlined some of the initiatives that he'll include in the spending plan. The governor wants to reform shared revenue. He's proposing sending 20% of the state's sales tax revenue back to local communities. Evers also wants to invest in the development of the clean energy workforce. Part of that includes spending $5 million a year for a clean energy job training and reemployment program. The governor is also proposing moves to support veterans. That includes increasing the eligibility for the Veterans and Surviving Spouses Property Tax Credit. Joining me now to break down the top headlines in politics this week is Jessie Apoyan, the Capitol Bureau Chief of the Cap Times. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, so we're talking about the president's visit to DeForest. You were there in attendance. What was one of your biggest takeaways here of this speech?
He really reiterated a lot of the themes that he shared during the State of the Union the previous night. So if you'd listened to that, you probably knew it was coming, but it was a real big emphasis, and he did this at the LIUNA Workers Training Center in DeForest, and that was a strategic choice. He was talking a lot about how the federal initiatives that have trickled down to states like Wisconsin are helping with manufacturing jobs in particular, union jobs that don't require a four-year college degree. I think definitely trying to tap into some voting demographics that have been, lost to Democrats over some of the last few elections, and trying to regain some of that, but a real big focus on sort of seeing those federal dollars, those ARPA dollars, the infrastructure bill, seeing those dollars in action.
Obviously, the first stop after the State of the Union was here in Wisconsin. You expect that to be a trend we see over the next couple of years in a state the president barely won a couple of years ago?
Absolutely. I was actually just talking with some officials from both of the parties earlier this morning, and there's no doubt. We've already seen some of the potential Republican candidates coming through, during the last cycle campaigning on behalf of some of the candidates like Ron Johnson, kind of getting their name out there. Ron DeSantis has been around, Nikki Haley's been around. So I think we're going to keep seeing that on the Republican side, and I'm sure we're going to keep seeing Biden coming back. There's, no question that it was a strategic move to do that first stop after the State of the Union here.
Wisconsin big on the national scene, but we have a big statewide conversation happening here this next week. It's going to be Tony Evers, the governor, releasing his budget. A couple of big items here that we're going to be battling in are going to be education, and then obviously some of that shared revenue. How big of a battle is this going to be as he releases this plan this week?
Well, that's a great question. And the big question that's been hanging over our heads since the election is how much of the party is really going to work together. They really didn't do much in the last 4 years, but they're singing a different tune, and we're waiting to see whether they're going to walk that walk. But shared revenue and education funding are both areas where both Republicans and Democrats agree more money is needed, and something has to change in the way that it's distributed. The question then is, can they get to the same place on it?
Education in particular, I know you did a deep dive on this with a recent article that you did. Do you see enough common ground where something gets done this year? Because, as you mentioned, they both say that they want to put more money into it, but they haven't been able to figure out how.
Right. I think on a lot of these issues, you're going to see them start kind of each in their own corners and start to see them move together. That's going to be the same on tax cuts. I think that's going to be the same on shared revenue. That's going to be the same on education, where Republicans would like to see more leeway given to private schools and more ability for students to go to those schools. Tony Evers would like to see more money pumped into public education. Senate Majority Leader Devin LeMahieu probably said it best, which is Tony Evers and I might both agree that we need a substantial amount of money going into public education. We just might not agree on what a substantial amount is.
When it comes to shared revenue, Governor Evers already kind of unveiled part of what he's going to put in that budget. Again, is this one of those subjects, though, where they're too far apart, or do you think there's somewhere in the middle they can meet here?
I actually think this is one of the areas where it might be easiest for them to meet in the middle, and that's because everyone deals with their local governments, right? Everyone's hearing from, cities, counties, towns about the fact that costs have gone up and the money coming from the state really hasn't over the last 10 years. So they, again, all agree that more money's needed. The governor recently proposed sending 20% of the state's sales tax revenue to shared revenue. A little less than half of that would be directed toward public safety, and then the rest would be unrestricted for governments to do what they like with. We haven't heard pushback from Republicans on that yet. It sounds like it's been kind of an evolving conversation since really the last few months, and it'll continue to be. But it, to me, is an area where you might actually see more agreement than anywhere else.
You've mentioned kind of agreement, bipartisanship. We've heard Governor Tony Evers talk about it. We've heard Robin Vos, Senator LeMahieu talk about it as well. Do you believe them, that they're actually willing to do this here, this coming cycle?
I'm an eternal optimist, but also a cynic. So, yeah, I actually do. I do believe that they want to. it remains to be seen how much they can do. But I think they really do mean it right now, and it's just a question of, does anything happen that makes them not want to do it anymore?
We are in wait and see mode here, and we
Very
will wait
much.
and we will see what happens here this coming week here at the state capitol. Jesse Poyen, thank you so much for the time here today.
Thanks for having me.